Hey everyone, welcome back to All Tony Farms, and today we're going to be getting into a new video. And before we get into the video, please go on and click the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Let's go on and get into the video. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another Wildwoods beekeeping chat. I appreciate y'all so much for joining in tonight. On your way in, make sure to click the thumbs up button. I appreciate it. So tonight's topic we'll be talking about in just a second, about 5 minutes. So if you're watching the replay, which I'm sure many of you are, you can always go back and watch it later. And skip everything, all this, if you want to get to the main topic, which tonight we're going to be talking about how to tell if your colony, your hive, is queenless or queenright. I actually went out to my bee yard today and was inspecting some bees and some splits, and a lot of what I did is what I'm going to be teaching tonight in tonight's presentation. So kind of what I do and what I kind of suggest to beekeepers. And this topic is kind of I guess toward newer beginners, but it can be useful for beekeepers who have already know many things, more experienced beekeepers. It still can be useful for those, and it's always good to get a refresh. Many people have told me that too, and I believe that as well. But thank you so much for joining in. Make sure to click that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Also wanted to let everybody know that right now I do have a promo code going on for the Wildwoods Honeybee Co. Etsy shop. If you don't know, it's called, the promo code is Easter10, all caps. I think that's all you can do is caps on Etsy, but Easter 10, you can get 10% off your first order. But the catch is that promo code ends tonight at 12 o'clock. So make sure to, if you are interested in anything on the shop, make sure to go over there and check that out and use the promo code as quickly as possible so you can get 10% off your first order. I see we have a good amount of folks in here. We got about 7 people on right now, so it's still kind of early, so we'll give some people some time to join in, then we'll get into tonight's topic. I see Dennis. I see Mike Tangway. Thanks for checking in, Mike. I appreciate you. I see Taco Bell 937. Thanks for checking in. Appreciate you. Dennis Sherrill. Thanks for checking in, Dennis. Good to see you. Another loyal subscriber, Dennis and Mike, who always checks in all the time. Appreciate you all joining in and being loyal subscribers and supporting the channel. Y'all are almost on my chats almost every single night, so I do appreciate you. I see Richard, another little subscriber who watches all the chats. Appreciate you so much for joining in tonight. Richard B. Collector Rake. Another little subscriber, Hallelujah Bee Farm, Pastor Larry, Miss Jan, and Miss Leona. So thanks so much for joining in, y'all. Appreciate y'all. Hope everything's going well. Y'all's way. Over there in South Carolina. So I'm going to give some updates real quick, and then we'll get into the topic. Right now, I got 16 colonies that have mated queens. And then I have 20 in total. So I still have 4 that don't have mated queen. I did add in some stands the other day. If many of you don't know, you have to go back and check out my video. I made up a video, and I'm sure y'all might have saw that. Some of y'all kind of showing how I did that. And everything turned out great. So make sure to go and check that out after the live stream. If you're curious how I do my stands, many people have complimented how the stands look. Kind of, people say they look like a barbecue stand, which I kind of do. But make sure to check out a video if you're interested in it and kind of how it looks, kind of how I put it in the ground. Kind of pretty interesting video, and the stands did well and looked very, very nice. A good presentation in the bee yard. Also, recently bought 40 frames from Premier Bee Foundation. That came in last week, so I was able to put on some frames because I needed some frames. Man, it was crazy how low I was on deep frames. I'm perfect. I'm fine on super frames, but I was just super low on 9 5/8 for the deep frames that I use all the time. So I needed to get some of those, which they came in. I put 2 boxes on so far, one on one colony 3 days ago, and the whole thing is almost already drawn out in 3-4 days. So I was kind of impressed on how fast they drew it out. That's one thing I do like about Premier Bee products. I'm sure many of you know who they are. They're just a company who's really known for their frames, for their foundation and their wax dip boxes as well, but mainly for their frames. And I really like them. I've been buying from them for about 2 years, 3 years. They're kind of my go-to for frames. I build boxes myself. I don't buy boxes from people, from any company. I build them myself, and they work just as fine as if I bought one from Man Lake or any other company. I also offer them on my shop as well. But anyway, I've been kind of talking a while. I see Brian. Hello all. Flow hasn't started yet here in Pennsylvania. I saw somebody just mention, where was that comment? How is everyone's honey flow going on so far? Mine has started kind of. We got some privet just starting to bloom just a little bit ago. A couple days ago, started to bloom on Saturday. I was kind of walking down our driveway and saw some privet, which is, that's our main flow. Privet is our main flow, and starting to bloom. So starting to see some nectar coming in, which is good. Our frames are getting drawn out, like I just mentioned just a little bit ago. If anybody wasn't in there that listened, I was put on some boxes about 3 days ago. Premier Bee Products frames in my own boxes, and they drew them out in about 3 days. So it was very, very quick. See, a quick question, then we'll get into the presentation. What lumber do you use? I just use regular pine wood from our from Lowe's. I've looked for some oak, just some different type of wood that's out there, but a lot of it's just more expensive in our local Lowe's in Troy, because that's our closest Lowe's hardware store. So I just use regular pine. See, Ronnie Middleton. Frank's asking, can you collect privet honey? Oh yeah, you can definitely collect privet honey. We that's one of our biggest flows. It's our really our biggest flow all year, but probably right beside the tallow. Our tallow and privet is our main 2 honey flows, and that's kind of what we kind of go off of whenever we're getting honey. But anyway, I've been kind of talking here for 8 minutes. I'm sure y'all are kind of ready to get into tonight's topic. So just give me just a quick second. I'll get this thing get my screen shared real quick. And we'll get into tonight's topic. There we go. Don't want to make that same mistake of not putting up my presentation. Did that a couple weeks ago, where I forgot to put up the presentation. Forgot all about it. But anyway, so tonight's topic, we're going to be talking about how to tell if your colony, your hive that you have, whether you have 3, 2, 1, or 20, 25, 30, no matter how many colonies you have. How do you know if your colony is queenless or if your colony is Queenright? And also, how do you know if your hive has a mated queen, a virgin queen, and what's the difference between both of those? I will kind of be talking about that, my personal experiences, and just some basic beekeeping knowledge that everybody knows, of course, but towards beginner beekeepers. But it is always good to have a refresh for even beekeepers who are already experienced. So many of you who are watching right now are already experienced beekeepers who've kept bees for a while. I see Russell, Keith, Larimore Farms. Russell, thank y'all so much for checking in. Many of y'all who's watching right now are very, very experienced and know what you're doing, but it's always good to get a little bit of a refresh on basic things. I like doing that too whenever I'm watching other folks, especially like David Burns or anybody like that. But first, a good start in tonight's topic would be to kind of talk about why this matters. Why does it matter why do you need to know if your colony has a queen or not? So a queenless colony will decline rapidly without intervention if your colony does not have a queen. And the reason why that is because I'm getting a phone call. I don't know who it is, but the reason why sometimes your colony will decline rapidly is because whenever you're making a split or something, they're not going to have any eggs in there to make a new queen. Especially on splits, because I've had that happen multiple times. So that's why whenever you make splits, you're definitely going to want to go back and check, because if their queen doesn't come back mated, they're not going to be able to make a new queen, because they don't have a queen in there and they don't have fresh larvae. They need a larva to make a queen. Just because there's brood in there doesn't mean they can make a queen. They need 3-day-old larva to make a queen, and if they don't have that, then they're not going to have they're never going to get a queen. And eventually they're going to get laying workers once that colony sits without a queen for very long. We're going to be talking about laying workers as well. Many of you know what I'm talking about. I've had some issues with laying workers, not many bad issues, but it typically when your colony is queenless for about 3 to 4 weeks. Sometimes it's even longer, but once your colony stays queenless for a while, those workers will start laying some eggs, and you don't want that, because worker bees cannot lay fertilized eggs, and they don't have a long enough abdomen to place one egg per cell, in the middle of the cell. And many people may wonder, why do worker bees put a whole bunch of eggs per cell? And that's because they don't have a long enough abdomen to reach the bottom. A queen does. You can kind of look at the difference between a queen and a bee. But anyway, this is kind of laying worker stuff. We'll talk about this later on. Population drops as no new brood is produced. Your population will drop suddenly. Increased risk of pest. The reason you have an increased risk of pests, such as moth beetle, wax moths, is because you don't have enough workforce. Because you don't have a queen in there. Laying workers can develop if left too long. Most times, early detection, whenever you don't have a queen, your colony goes queenless, especially if it's a split or something, and they don't have any eggs in there, any fresh larvae. It's always more simple to fix. You have simpler fixes. But a late detection, whenever you detect it late that your colony is queenless, that makes recovery much harder, because a lot of times you're going to have to be dealing with a laying workers. And whenever you're dealing with that, a lot of times it's hard to introduce a new queen, because they're not really going to accept her. We're going to be talking about that as well. That's a kind of an issue as well. So definitions, and what we're talking about is each definition of a Queenright colony and a queenless colony. So a Queenright colony has these things: a healthy laying queen that is present, eggs, larvae, and consistent brood patterns, and the colony is functioning normally, as we all know, a colony has to function normally. But a queenless colony has no queen present, or queen is not laying, no new eggs being produced, and the colony begins to decline over time due to no new bees being raised or laid by the queen. Those are your two definitions. And when we're talking about definitions, it's just what each term means. If you're a newer beekeeper, you might not know what a term means. So let's talk about some signs that you have a queen, or if you don't have a queen. So sign number 1 that you have a queen is eggs. So fresh eggs usually mean your queen was present within the last 24 to 72 hours. Once you start seeing larvae, that means that kind of extends over that 72 hours, because eggs will then emerge into a larva, and that's right around day 3. Also, eggs stand upright on day 1, and then the eggs begin to tilt on day 2 to 3. So if you see eggs standing straight up out of the cell, you know that egg was laid probably a couple hours ago, or very, very recently. But if you start seeing them to tilt, that's still a good sign that to see eggs, regardless if they're tilted or if they're standing upright. But that means it's been a little bit longer. It's been about 2 to 3 days. So usually you'll have typically 1 egg per cell, but in some cases, newer queens that just got mated will lay 2 to 3 eggs per cell. The bees will fix it. I've seen them do it. I've always monitored a colony with a new queen when she accidentally lays a couple eggs per cell by accident, and the reason is because she's brand new and trying to lay quickly, and she's kind of moving around. Y'all know how kind of new queens are, right? Whenever they come back mated, they just love to run around. But once they get a little older, they'll calm down and just be a lot more slower and be a little bit more consistent in more perfection, right? But early on, she's still getting used to everything, so she's you might see a couple eggs off here and there. You might see one egg not in the cell, stuff like that. You'll see. You'll also, like I said, you'll see sometimes you might see a couple eggs per cell, and if you see that, don't automatically think that there's a laying worker. You kind of want to dive deeper and kind of look for a queen if possible. And the bees usually think if there's a mated queen in there and there's a couple eggs per cell, I've monitored colonies like that before, and the bees will fix it and everything will be back normal in a couple weeks once she gets a little bit older. So don't freak out if you see that. And also eggs are usually centered at the bottom. Now, again, sometimes queens can be a little off. You might see one egg off. You might see a couple eggs per cell, and sometimes it might be a little bit more to the left, not in the center, but usually they are centered. That comes with age, right? I've seen that all the time with newer queens. So some warning signs whenever you're inspecting your bees is no eggs found during inspection. Multiple eggs in the cell could be a possible laying workers. You don't want to freak out immediately. You kind of want to dive deeper and look and see if maybe it's just the queen's young and she accidentally had a little boo-boo and laid a couple eggs per cell. And look for the queen. And if there's a whole bunch of cells with hundreds of them with eggs, with multiple eggs per cell, that probably is a laying worker, because a queen isn't, even a young queen isn't just going to go around and lay multiple eggs per cell. It's just here and there you might see that. So those are your warning signs. Just kind of be on the lookout whenever you're inspecting your colonies, if you suspect them to be queenless. So sign number 2 is a brood pattern. Now, you can't really definitely tell, but it is a good sign to see. You always want to dive deeper and look for eggs or larvae, but a brood pattern is a good sign. A Queenright colony will usually have a solid brood pattern with minimal empty cells. Sometimes you'll have some empty cells, and a lot of times it's because a bee emerged earlier than the others, and then they backfill it with nectar. It kind of looks like she missed a spot where she actually didn't. It was just a bee emerged and they added some nectar. I see that all the time as well. Also, you usually see a tight, consistent laying pattern, and worker brood dominates. Possible issues are spotty or scattered brood pattern. Don't freak out immediately if you see that, because sometimes it's just because maybe there's not a sufficient nectar flow. Sometimes, whenever there's not a good nectar flow, the queen isn't as consistent. Sometimes it's a little bit more spotty. Another possible issue could be large gaps between cap brood. That's it. That's probably a possible issue, a sign for you to look to kind of see. It also increased drone brood in worker cells. Now, if you see drone brood in worker size cells, that is not a good sign at all. You kind of want to go in there and look deeper and kind of figure out what's going on. There's two things that's going on. If you see drone brood in worker cells, there's a couple things going on. Number one, you have a laying worker, possibly, because sometimes they'll still cap it off and the drone will emerge because those eggs will turn into drones, but a very much smaller drone. It's kind of hard to explain what a drone looks like. It's much smaller. It's not like a regular drone would be. But the main suspect would be that you have a drone laying queen, and what a drone laying queen is basically a queen that was a mated queen that had sperm in her spermophica. When she went on her mating flight, she ran out of that. So she can't lay no more fertilized eggs. So therefore, she has to start laying unfertilized eggs, and she starts accidentally, laying unfertilized eggs in worker-sized cells, and that's where you get drone brood in those worker-sized cells. So many times you'll just have to kill the queen and requeen them. I've had that one time before with a queen. I haven't had any more issues with drone laying queens, but I did have one issue a while back. And I did fix it. I just had to kill the queen and put a new frame in there of eggs and let them raise their own queen, and everything turned out fine. So the third sign, and also make sure to when on your way in, make sure to click that thumbs up button. It really helps me out, gets this live stream out to more folks. I greatly appreciate you doing that. So the third sign is larva. And again, the main sign is eggs. So don't just go into your colony and look, and if you see larva and brood, say, okay, we got a queen in here, everything's good. That's not totally the case. You want to find eggs. Eggs tells you that the queen was present within the last 24 hours, within the 24, 72 hour period, especially if they're tilting upwards. But larva and brood still can be can still help you out a little bit. You can know that there was a queen in there at one point, but it's still a sign. But I would still just look for eggs. If you're looking for a Queenright colony, my focus would be on eggs, not larva or brood, because a lot of times whenever you have a split, a lot of times that brood was from your old queen. Whenever you made that split, and then your new queen hasn't emerged yet, or you have a new queen, so you just gotta look for eggs whenever you're looking for a queen. But larva and brood, like I said, can still be helpful. So presence of larva does mean recent queen activity. So the youngest a larva can be is 3 days old. So 72, your queen was in your colony within the last 72 hours or 4 days. She was there at one point recently. Larvae are visible. You can see them really, really good, much better than you can see eggs. I can see eggs pretty well, but I can see larvae even better. Larvae are small white C shapes. As you can see in the picture here, that's what a larva looks like. They're just a small little C shape in each cell. A lot of times they're smaller, and the bigger they are, the older they are, smaller they are, the younger they are. The youngest they can be, as I said, is 72 hours old. And that's the larva beekeepers want, the youngest larva to raise queens, grafting, that type of stuff. They want the youngest larva. The larva in the picture, as you see, is a little bit older. Looks about more like 8 to 9 days. 8 to 9 to 10, 11 days old right there. That's kind of what it looks like. Oh, I didn't really want to skip. So some important clues whenever you're looking at your colony are larvae present but no eggs. That means your queen may have recently been lost. So maybe within the last 4 or 5 days, maybe even 3 days. No larvae and no eggs equals a stronger indication of queenlessness. Now, if you don't see any of it, you're probably going to want to put some eggs in there and let them raise their own queen, or either buy a queen from an online store, or something like that. Whatever you want to do to get a new queen. I always just put a frame of eggs and larvae and a little bit of brood as well, and let them raise their own queens. That's what I've always done. I don't buy bees no more. I haven't bought bees probably for about 2 years. The only reason why I bought bees was because I only had one colony coming out of winter, so I had to get a little bit some more colonies. And right now I'm at 16 that are mated. But anyway, so the fourth sign are queen cells. These right here will tell you, a lot. There's 3 types of cells: is emergency cells, swarm cells, and supersedure cells. So emergency cells are built when the queen is lost. So they're not going to swarm if there's emergency queen cells, but that means that their queen was somehow died. Whether it be you as a beekeeper, or me, or whoever it is, smashes her by accident. Or if it's like a split and she went out to get mated and she didn't come back, they'll make emergency cells. These are often located in the middle of the frame and larger and more elongated than worker cells. As you can see in the picture, I really always say that the queen cells look kind of like a peanut. If anybody who's new, kind of what does a queen cell look like, just kind of imagine a queen cell kind of looks more kind of like a peanut. So some types to recognize, like I mentioned, are emergency cells. Center of the frame, like we mentioned, they are for whenever the queen is lost. That's why they're called emergency cells. Swarm cells, most people know what swarm cells are. Swarming, whenever the bees are gonna divide, that's how they reproduce. And they are most times they're on the bottom of the frame. Sometimes you'll see a couple centered, and maybe more in the middle of centered and on the bottom. And supersedure cells are whenever the bees want to replace the queen. If there's an issue, bees can tell if there's an issue or not by pheromones, mainly by pheromones. They can, since pheromones. Also, these are often fewer and often centered. And again, supersedure cells are whenever the bees want to replace a queen. Like many beekeepers will replace queens whenever they're not good, whenever they're don't have a good brood pattern, things like that. But the bees will do it themselves. That's what a supersedure cell is for you newer beginners out there. And not a hard way to talk about it. All right, so the fifth sign that we're going to talk about is bee behavior. And I think this is really the biggest one that you can kind of, if you're a beekeeper, you probably, to understand bee behavior, you probably have to be kind of a more experienced beekeeper who works around bees a lot. I can kind of tell if a colony is queenless or not just by their behavior. A Queenright colony, usually, even a Queenright colony can be the opposite of what I'm about to say. If your colony is the opposite of what a Queenright colony says on here, it might not always mean your colony's Queenright. But usually a Queenright colony is a calm, the bees are calm and steady movement on frames. Bees remain focused on brood and work and less defensive overall. Now, a lot of times, due to genetics, you'll have, sometimes your bees are a little bit more defensive. Even if they're Queenright. A queenless colony, a lot of times what you'll see is louder roaring sounds whenever you open the colony, and I think we all kind of know what it sounds like. Whenever there's a queenless colony, I just always know. Whenever I hear that loud roaring sound, I just know exactly that. Oh, this colony is probably queenless. By their behavior. Also, bees, appear disorganized or restless. You'll see that all the time, running around on the frames. Increased defensiveness. You know what? I inspected a colony recently that didn't have a queen, and man, they were much more defensive than they usually were. They were usually a very calm colony, but I was checking them for a queen, and they didn't have one in there. I mean, they're just a whole bunch more defensive. So I put a frame of eggs in there and larvae, and they drew out some cells. So it kind of told me that, hey, they are queenless and they need a queen. That was one of the ones that swarmed that I wasn't able to catch a while back. Also, another sign is bees may run across comb instead of working. You'll see that a lot of times as well, whenever your colony is queenless. So let's talk about some laying workers. We're kind of talking about this earlier. Make sure y'all click the thumbs up button on your way in. I appreciate y'all joining tonight. I think we have about 13 people in here tonight. You see Keith, Dennis, Frank, Tim and Hannah, Philip, Russell, Amond. Many good folks in here tonight. Thank you so much for joining in. Make sure to click the thumbs up button on your way in. But anyway, let's try to talk about some laying workers. I started talking about it earlier, but I kind of want to finish that little conversation off. The laying workers develop after extended queenlessness, usually around 3 to 4 weeks, that I've found. Now, for you, it might be later or it might be sooner. Sometimes it just depends. But for me, I've usually seen when a colony is queenless for about 3 to 4 weeks with no brood, with nothing in there, no eggs, no larvae, no brood at all, then they'll start have some laying workers in there. I do find if you leave brood in there that you have a less chance of having a laying worker. If you have a queenless colony, so you might want to keep some eggs, some larvae, some brood in there if your colony is queenless. That's kind of a good idea. So here are some signs for you beekeepers who are looking at your colony wondering, do I have a laying worker or not? So number one is multiple eggs per cell. Look, as you can see on the frame, on the picture there, you see all those cells there. There's about 5, 6 per cell, just so messy and disorganized. A queen would never, usually would never look like that. Now, I mentioned earlier, and I will say it again, that a lot of times newer, younger queens I've found will sometimes accidentally lay a couple eggs per cell just because they're young and inexperienced layers, but once they get older, they'll get a little bit more experienced and be a little bit more consistent and slower and a better queen overall whenever she gets older, and you'll see that it's just a much more consistent egg pattern. But whenever she's younger, you might see a couple eggs per cell here and there, but it's just not like in bunches as you see on the picture. So if you see something like that on the picture, good chance that you have a laying worker in your colony. And still go through your colony and kind of check and see kind of what everything looks like. You still want to get a big picture idea of what's going on. Always good to inspect the whole colony whenever you have issues. Also, eggs stuck to the cells of the cell walls, drone brood and worker size cells, and very erratic brood pattern. And whenever you see that, that means you most likely probably have a laying worker. So the outcome of this is really much harder to fix than simple queen loss. Whenever you lose a queen, it's a little bit more easier. You can just introduce a new queen if you have one, or you can buy one, or you can put some egg/larva in your colony, and they'll draw it out, make a new queen. She'll go get mated, and usually things will be just fine. But with a laying worker, it's just really hard just to add a, queen in there. I've had some problems with that before. They'll just kill the queen. But what you want to do, what most people will do, and y'all can say what y'all do whenever you have laying workers. I haven't had laying workers that much. I've had them a couple times. I think twice mainly. I haven't really got myself in a problem with that, with an extended problem. But what I've always done is just add some brood to the colony, and kind of make them think that there is a queen, and maybe those laying workers will stop. A lot of people will say, hey, to shake off all those workers, let them fly all the way back, and those laying workers won't come back. A lot of people will say that. A lot of time it's just hard to, predict that. But the best bet would just be add some brood in there, get those laying workers to kind of stop laying eggs and kind of think that there's a queen in there, because brood larva eggs will kind of give out that pheromone, and maybe that can help a little bit, and then you can introduce a queen, or they'll make a new queen. That's what I've done. It worked. But give your opinions, kind of what you do. Might help some beekeepers here in the chat who are watching live. Might give them some ideas of what they might be able to do if they have a laying worker. Like I said, I haven't dealt with it that much. But that's what I've done, and it worked and kind of cured the problem, of laying workers. Keith said, just take the laying worker hive apart and divide it up again amongst several strong hives. That's another thing I was actually just about to mention. I almost forgot about that. You could also, if you have a laying worker colony, you can also just spread it all, put some of those frames in other colonies, and just kind of combine them with other colonies. That's probably another great way to do it, unless if you really want the colony. But it might be better off just to, combine a lot of those, that laying worker colony, divide it a little bit up into other colonies, and just start over and make a split. And that might be a little bit better for you. So let's kind of talk about the timeline after, you might lose a queen. So day 0, of course, is whenever a queen is lost. We're just kind of saying in a scenario if you lost a queen. So day 1 to 3, eggs still are present. But whenever you get to day 4 to 7, only larva remains. So that's whenever they're going to most likely raise themselves their own queen if they lose their own queen, emergency cells. So day 8 to 10 is usually whenever those emergency cells are capped. Day 16 plus is whenever your new queen will emerge, right around day 16. And then around week 3, risk of laying workers if no queen, if the queen doesn't come back mated. So after that queen emerges on day 16, this is a real important part of if your queen comes back mated or not, whether it be a split, or if your colony just lost the queen and they made emergency cells. You want to watch from day 16 to day 31, or even day 35, and kind of look and make sure that you have a queen. It usually takes a queen about 14 days to get mated. Now, a lot of times sooner. I've had queens get mated within 7 days after they emerged. It just depends sometimes, the timeline there. But just watch very closely and make sure your queen comes back mated. If she doesn't, what you can do is add some eggs/larva, like I've been mentioning all night tonight. That's what I've done. Works for me. And let them raise their own queen again. Another emergency cell, basically. Let them raise more emergency cells. That's what I've done multiple times. Or if you want, just buy a queen and introduce her that way. Now, the only reason why I don't do that, a little bit too risky to me. I don't want to go online and buy a $40 queen, because queens are about $39, sometimes even I'm seeing queens for $50. I don't really want to waste that money. I just let them make their own queen. And the good thing about that is these queens around here, they're, those genetics are more adapted to my location, my climate. That's the best way to do it for me. That's what I've done, for a while. So, how to confirm if you have made a queen in your colony? So, there's a couple things that you want to do is look closely for eggs in multiple frames, not just one frame. It's good 1 to 2 frames, 2 to 3 frames for eggs. Now, sometimes if you just got back and made a queen, she might only be on one frame and you only see eggs on one frame, so that's fine as well. But anytime you go in your colony after a split and you see a mated queen, you always want to go back in about a week and a half later, and check, make sure she's still in there, make sure she's still doing good, check the brood pattern, stuff like that. But just look close for eggs in multiple frames, check for larvae and brood stages, identify presence of queen cells if there are any in there. That means your colony is queenless. Or possibly you might have some swarm cells in there, and if you want to know if you have swarm cells, basically you're going to have a queen in there most likely. If you have swarm cells, unless they already swarmed. Also, re-inspect, after 3 to 5 days if you are unsure if there's a queen in there or not. If you need to confirm, go back in there and check. And also add a test frame of eggs if needed. And this is the main thing I do. If I'm really not sure, I'll go ahead and add a frame of eggs. Might as well, because if they are queenless, they're gonna need that frame anyway. And you can always go back later and check that frame of eggs, of larva, and see if they have drawn out any cells. And if they did, that means your colony is queenless. If they didn't, that could mean your colony is Queenright. So that's what I do. And most times, if I suspect that there's no queen in there, and I put a frame of eggs / larva in there, and I come back, usually they draw out cells, and I'll be like, "Oh, they're queenless," and glad I did that. So, adding a test frame is a good idea to do. So, make sure y'all click that thumbs up button on your way in. I appreciate y'all joining in tonight. We've got about 18 people in here. Clicking the like does help me out a lot. Makes this live stream get out to more people. So, hopefully, we can help some beginner beekeepers out there who are kind of curious how to know if their hive is queenless or not. So, let's talk about what you need to do. So, if your colony is queenless, you want to add a frame of fresh eggs from another colony. I've been mentioning this. I've probably mentioned it about 10 times tonight. I apologize, but I just really do encourage that. Introduce a mated queen if you have one, or if you want to buy one. Allow colony to raise their own queen. Of course, you'd need a frame of fresh eggs from another colony. Or if they're kind of small / weak, and you don't have anything that they're not really going to do anything and they're not going to survive, you might just want to combine with a stronger colony if they are weak. Now, if they're strong, you still want to go ahead and add them a frame of eggs or a mated queen and get yourself another colony. So if your colony is Queenright, there's only a couple things you need to do is avoid unnecessary disturbance. Continue your regular inspections that you always do every 1 to 2 weeks. I usually inspect my bees every 2 weeks at least, to make sure, right now, my main thing right now is to make sure they're not swarming, because right now it's springtime and they've just been running away from me. And see if I need to add space and to kind of check my queen, make sure everything's going well inside the colony. And you also do want to monitor your brood pattern, make sure it's good. If it's not, you might want to replace your queen, and check the growth of your colony. Make sure they don't go right ahead of you, because they'll get away from you very, very fast. So make sure you keep and monitor the growth of your colony, because they can grow super, super fast. That's what my colonies are, and it's just been crazy how fast they've grown so far. So here are some common mistakes that many newer beekeepers make, maybe even some experienced beekeepers. I'm sure I've made these as well before. Number one is assuming queenless just because queen isn't seen. Done that a couple times before when I was brand new, but I learned, after a little while that look for eggs. The main thing I look for right now, now as a beekeeper, for a queen is eggs, not just a queen. I don't need to find the queen. If I see eggs, I know she's been in there in the last 24 hours, especially if they're tilted up. But it's still good to find the queen if you want to find her. For all means, find her so you kind of, if you're a new beekeeper, if you're looking for a queen, so you can kind of get better at finding a queen. That's a good way to do it. Is try to, whenever you're inspecting, find the queen. But you don't have to. You just gotta find eggs. Also, not checking carefully for eggs, just like we mentioned. Also, confusing brood breaks with queen loss. Destroying queen cells too early. Done that one before. Accidentally destroying them, or not accidentally, on purpose destroying them because I thought that they needed to be destroyed. Because I thought they were about to swarm, so I figured, hey, maybe I could destroy the cells and they wouldn't swarm. But it was actually the case that the colony is queenless. So you always got to check, make sure your colony is queenless. Also, don't destroy queen cells too early. You never want to do that. I've done that one before too. Also, acting too quickly without confirmation. You want to check your colony, make sure you can confirm that your colony is queenless or queenright before taking action. And ignoring early warning signs that we've mentioned throughout this presentation. So some key takeaways are eggs are the most reliable indicator of a queen. If you're looking for a queen, the best bet is to look for eggs. Especially eggs that are tilted up. That means they are about 24 hours old. Or even under. That queen might have laid it recently. And your queen might be on that frame or the next frame. Somewhere around there. Also, larvae confirm recent queen activity. Brood pattern reveals queen quality. Behavior supports what you observe. Make sure to watch for behavior. We talked about that earlier as well. That loud roaring sound kind of might mean that they're queenless. Always confirm before taking action, because if you don't confirm, then you might accidentally do something that you shouldn't have done, and you should have done something different for your scenario that you might be in. And also, quick response leads to better outcomes. So that's tonight's topic of, how to know if your colony is queenless or queenright. We've been going on for about 42 minutes. It's actually this presentation took a little bit longer tonight. So let me go back and Frank's asking, what makes eggs change position? That's a good question. I've never really researched that before. That's a really good question. Now, somebody else might know scientifically the reason for that. Honestly, I really don't know for sure. One of y'all let me know. That is an interesting question there. What makes eggs change position? Because within 24 hours, whenever the eggs lay, it'll be tilted up, and then about day 1 to 2, those eggs will be tilted down a little bit sideways. I'm just going to go back and kind of see. I see we got Philip, RTX Honeybees from Texas. Thanks for checking in. Appreciate you. I also got Brian from Colorado. I think he was in here just a little bit ago. Frank, Galilee Lights, Keith Larimore Farms, Dennis Rowe. Make sure y'all click that thumbs up button. Appreciate y'all. I see Rodney. He was in here earlier. Rodney Middleton. Thanks for checking in, Rodney. That was earlier, around 6:10. Taco Bell said never had a laying worker yet. Well, that's very, very good that you didn't have one. I haven't had many either. I've only had 2 colonies with that. One of them I was able to successfully fix. The other was weak, and I just let them kind of die out. Kind of shook them out. And because they're just too small to do anything with. I'm just looking for calling. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I have a video coming out Thursday with some proof that bees don't read the same books that we do. That is very much correct. A lot of beekeepers might think that if you follow the book, the bees will follow the book. But that's not the case. They've done things that I've seen that the book doesn't say. So always expect the unexpected. Thanks for checking in, though, Keith. Keith Spillman from Half Tracks and Honeybees over there in North Carolina. Who else do we got in here? We got Tim and Hannah. Oh, there's Brian, Flower Street Farm Bees. Hello from Colorado. I've been moving and splitting bees all day. I'm running out of frames again. You know what, Brian? I was just mentioning just a little bit ago that I'm running out of frames as well. I've been splitting bees, adding boxes, and I ordered 40 frames for Premier Bee Foundation. I only have 20 left, so I'm okay right now. But I'm just kind of low on stuff. I am starting to build boxes, and I'm kind of getting to a point where I'm slim out of boxes, so I'm building stuff for me. Boxes. I don't build frames, so that's just kind of beyond my woodworking of what I do. I do know many of you. I know Philip makes a lot of a lot of frames. I've seen some videos of his before. I don't do it though. I just do boxes, loopers, bottom boards, top cover, stuff like that. When I'm doing splits, the loudest box is the one I just put the queen. I call it the she's here, or I get you. That happens to me all the time whenever I'm doing splits. Your hives are looking very, very good. Thanks for checking in. That's actually my granddad. Thanks so much for checking in. Your hives are looking very good. They're doing very, very well, y'all. This season so far has started off really, really well. I still want it to continue. Of course, everybody wants a good season to continue. Still very, very early. It's only April 6th. We still have April, May, and June. June we'll be getting more into our flow. Into our dearth in June. But early June we still will have our still have a little bit of a flow going. Y'all know. Well, we only got about 14 minutes left. Like I said, this topic that I did tonight kind of went by pretty fast, which I was kind of surprised. Went by very, very fast. Building your own frames is a total waste of time, but I'm getting to be an expert at wasting time. I get you. I've tried building frames before. I was trying to go and what I had some plans that I kind of looked up and was able to follow them, but I was like, nah, never mind. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to stick with boxes and stick with tops, bottoms for myself. I do save money on that stuff, rather than buying it from somewhere else. I do save some money because one deep box cost me around $15 to make. Ain't that bad, I think the cheapest I've seen boxes go for, of course you have to buy it in bulk, is on Man Lake. I think it's like $22 for unassembled, not for assembled, just for the unassembled ones. But pretty cheap for me to make for myself. And they work well. Now the only thing I can't do with my boxes is make the handholds that most boxes come with. The commercial style handholds. So what I have to do is just make a little I usually do a 7.5 inch little block, little excess piece, and about 7.5 inches long and about 2 inches deep, and just make a handle that way. I'm gonna give me just a second, real quick, y'all. I'm gonna pull something up real quick on my end, and it's kind of slow. But yeah, for people who are curious about updates, right now I have 16 colonies that have mated queens, and I have 20 in total. I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Give me a second. So I'm just gonna do kind of what I always do every live stream. I kind of always promote my Wildwoods Honeybee Co. Etsy shop. Make sure y'all check it out. Links in the description below if you are interested. Now, many of you, I always do this every single live stream. It's kind of a routine for me. At the end of the live stream, kind of promote my shop. If you've already seen videos of me promoting it, you don't got to go back. Don't feel like you have to go back, because this is just designed. This is just really towards some people who have not seen it yet. I'm trying to make it as accessible as possible. But anyway, make sure to check it out if you haven't already. Wildwoods Honeybee Co. Etsy shop. Just go to Etsy.com, and the link's in the description below. You can go by and kind of look what's going on there. I do sell honey, and woodenware stuff. And the whole thing that came up really with the wooden stuff that I build, the reason I even sell stuff, is because I build it myself. So I build it for myself, a little bit more cheaper, but I figured that since I like building stuff, not frames, of course, just boxes, of course, boxes. those are available, and I just wanted to make them available for people who might be interested. So just try to make that as accessible as possible. Make sure to check the description below. The link to that's down there. Also, the that QR code at the top that StreamYard has that QR code goes to the Etsy shop as well. So all you gotta do is if you're on watching on a TV, all you gotta do is put your phone on there, and it takes you right to the Etsy shop. And I really find those QR codes pretty handy, you know. But anyway, I just wanted to share that out there. I sell multiple stuff like mandatory top covers, regular boxes, and stuff like that. Also, another thing I do want to share out for folks. I haven't really talked about a whole lot is about my email newsletter. I do a newsletter for people who are curious. I always what I do is I'll the newsletters for email newsletter is to promote my videos in the Etsy shop. So I always will, whenever I have a promo code or sales going on the Etsy shop, make sure to subscribe to the email newsletter. It's free, easy, and I greatly do appreciate it. And you can be the first one to know of any discounts and stuff like that, or to get updates on my live streams, videos, and stuff like that. I don't really do it every day or anything. I won't spam or anything like that. I don't like to do that. But I'm going to put a link if you want to check it out in the description below, and I'll let me pull it up real quick. It's really back in my notes because I put it in here a while back. Put it in the comments so you can check it out. Where is this link at? It's way back here in my notes. Here it is. I'm just gonna leave this here. Make sure to check it out and subscribe to the email newsletter if you want to get updates on stuff, on videos and stuff like that. And the shop, of course, is in the description below. But anyway, enough of that. That's kind of what I usually do every live stream, is kind of promote all the stuff that I kind of have going on right now. Oh, there's Brian Bennett. You going to do mite treatments? I actually didn't know that was a question, so I apologize. I was gonna try to I really didn't know that was a question. But am I gonna do mite treatments? Yeah, I'm gonna do mite treatments. I just don't do them as much. I don't many of you folks probably do them a whole lot more than I do. I do it at a little bit more of a limited base. I don't really I use like Apivar. I've used Apigard before, so yeah, I will. I usually do one in spring around this time of year, whenever supers are off, and then we'll do another one usually going into winter. I think the most important one to me is going into winter, and I mean even in summer as well is important. Grayson, you ever build pollen collectors? I have not. That is a good idea though to sell. Maybe people might be interested in that. That's a good idea, Frank. Yes, usually the boxes are scattered about, so the bees are frantic to find her. Yeah. Hey, oh no worries. Thank you for checking in tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in there. I'll answer any more. We got about 7 more minutes, and then we'll kind of get ready to kind of check out for tonight. Make sure y'all click that thumbs up button, smash that like. I appreciate it. It helps the video, the live stream get out to more people, and I really appreciate that. What are your best queens? You talking about genetics wise, or a Pacific colony? Now, genetics wise, and I'll let you know so I can answer the question. But I will say, my genetics wise, I use Italians. I've used Russians before, I believe. Now I really don't know for sure if they were Russians or not, but they just seemed more like a Russian bee to me. Just their behavior, the way they manage their honey. You can tell kind of how bees manage their honey. Italians manage it differently. Russians manage them a little bit differently, and whenever you kind of look at them, you kind of can tell. Kind of hard to explain, but it's just you can just kind of tell, But I run all Italians right now. I don't run Carniolans or Caucasians. I know many beekeepers do. The reason why I mainly run Italians are because It's because they brewed up early, and I kind of want that because down here in Alabama, we don't have that. We do have cold snaps, but it isn't that bad like many people up north. Now, northern beekeepers prefer Carniolans or even Russians because they brewed up later. I prefer Italians because they brewed up earlier, and that's kind of good for my climate. It just depends on kind of what your climate is, if you're up north or if you're down here, down south in Alabama, Florida, Georgia, or wherever you're at. But I hope you all had a good Easter yesterday. Happy Easter to everyone. I forgot to mention that yesterday. I hope everybody had a great day with their friends and family on Resurrection Sunday. Hope everybody had a good day. Swarm cells are best. A larger egg is laid in a swarm cell. You're correct, Richard. That's why I make splits with swarm cells. My method is double deeps, 5-frame splits, and I'll wait till they make swarm cells, and I'll split them whenever those swarm cells are in there, and use the swarm cells for the queenless splits, and the one that has a queen doesn't get a swarm cell. It's because those swarm cells are the best cells you can get, the best queens you can get. For the reason you mentioned. Now, emergency cells and super seizure, they're fine. They're still a good queen, but it is just a much more quality queen with swarm cells. Hey, Russell, thanks for checking in. But yeah, swarm cells are the best. That's why I do the splits the way I do. But here soon, I'll probably be getting ready to do more splits as well, because all my colonies are starting to get really, really big. I got two that are in double deeps. Both of them are about full. Like I mentioned, I had a box, of Premier Bee Products frames that I recently bought, put them on a colony about 4 days ago, and the whole box is probably almost already drawn out. So once it gets pretty packed full, I'm expecting swarm cells in there any day now whenever I check them next. So I'm going to split them. Have another colony that's full, double deep. I expect they have swarm cells in there. So that's right there, a potential. Let's do the math here. That'd be +6 if I did that, Now, the reason why it'd be only +6 is because I already have the original 2 colonies. It's just, you're really going it's really making, it's still making 4 splits out of 1, but, you still have that original colony. Then you'll have the 3 other ones. So that right now I'm at 20. So if I did that, I'd be up to 26. If me just thinking that, hey, I'm going to be splitting these 2 colonies, because I expect I am. I think, here soon. Watching for swarm cells here, me too. That's been my main focus right now. For me, is to kind of be watching for them. Do you like foundationless comb frames? Mine broke when checking bees in winter. Brittle. A lot of times what I'll do is I use a lot of foundation. Most of my frames are foundation, but I would say about 25% of them are just foundationless comb frames, like no foundation at all. And it works just fine for me. You do have to be more careful with it, though, whenever you're inspecting. I have to be a lot more careful than I do with foundation. You still have to be careful with foundation. You want to be gentle and careful with your bees, but you have to be extremely careful with the foundationless frames whenever you're kind of tilting it both ways, that it doesn't flap out and fall out. I've had that happen a couple of times. Just got to be careful. But I do like using it, foundationless comb, and what I'll use it most times for is whenever I'm doing, putting them in a 10-frame box, as long as there's no cold snaps and anything like that, what I'll do is I'll just checkerboard and put empty frames in the middle, and then they'll draw it out really, really quickly. And then a lot of times what I'll do is I'll kind of rearrange it when it's done and put all the regular brood frames in the middle, and then those outer frames outside. A lot of times what I'll do. And even if I don't do that, they'll just kind of rearrange everything and put all the brood more in the center going into winter. That's what they've done when I've done that. It worked good. Checkerboarding is just basically a drawn frame, empty frame, drawn frame, empty frame, drawn frame, empty frame, drawn frame, empty frame, kind of like that, on and on. Checkerboarding. That's one of my main methods I use whenever I'm putting them into a 10-frame box. Just so then I can kind of save the foundation for whenever I want to add the deep on top of that colony. That's what I do. Make sure y'all smash that thumbs up. If you're on your way in or on your way out, I appreciate y'all so much for checking in tonight. I guess here soon we'll be kind of wrapping up. Unless if there's any more questions coming in. I see a question: have you tried grafting? I have tried grafting about 2 years ago, and I think it was 2023. I had a couple that came out okay. I had one that did emerge, but it didn't survive that long just because I had nowhere to put it. I was just kind of practicing a little bit. I really didn't expect any to emerge. I did have one emerge, but didn't have nowhere to put it, so I just left it in a little queen cage. It actually looked a good queen, a little virgin queen, but I didn't have nowhere to put it, so I just kept it in a queen cage in a colony, just kind of keeping it in there for a little bit, but I just didn't have nowhere to do with it. But I've tried it a couple times. I'm not probably going to this year. Now, what I do have, and what my main problem why I didn't do it again was because I was out of these Chinese grafting tools. Look at this. I got a 10-pack here. And I got a Never 10-pack as well in here. Somewhere in here is a Never 10-pack. So I lost my grafting tool. I had one. I literally had one grafting tool. Probably should have got more, but only had one. But now I have 20 grafting tools. So safe to say that I'm not going to lose it again. And if I do lose one, I'll have replacements. I'm looking for the other pack that I have in here. I'll have to find it when I'm done. I just can't really find it. I have some of these here, some more J-hook half tools. Really like these J-hook. I actually got a 4-pack for like $20. Very good little thing. And I plan to give these away for my 3,000 subscriber giveaway. And now, if you don't know, I will mention that I'm at 2,816 subscribers right now, and I've mentioned multiple times before that whenever I reach 3,000 that I would do a 3,000 subscriber giveaway. And I'm going to keep my word on that. Whenever I reach 3,000, I'm going to do that giveaway, and I'm going to give away some frames, not some frames, excuse me, just some Hive tools like this. And I'm going to see what else I can give away. I might give away like a hat, one of my hats right here, Wildwoods beekeeping hat. We'll see. But anyway, it's getting kind of a little bit later. I'm kind of past 7 here, so I'm going to go ahead and get going. Appreciate y'all so much for watching. On your way out, when you're leaving, don't forget to click that thumbs up button, because I really do appreciate you whenever you do that, because it helps me out. And if you will, I do appreciate it. It's free, easy. Make sure to share the live stream out. Maybe help some people out, whether it's on Facebook or on YouTube here on the platform. I appreciate you sharing it out. If you will, click the thumbs up button. Appreciate y'all so much for watching. I see Michael kind of checking in a little bit later here. Thanks for checking in, Michael. I was just about to check it out, but I appreciate you so much for joining in. He's saying been slow for me this year, but I do still have bees. So this small amount of rain kicks things off here in South Carolina. I actually had some rain yesterday. Good amount of rain. So I think that's going to kickstart everything for us here as well. But thank you so much for checking in tonight. Greatly appreciate it. Make sure to share, like, and subscribe. And we will catch y'all next time. Good night, everyone.